Right, hello there, Catherine and Alan. How are you?
Hi, Tina.
We're so thrilled about this because I've got some tickets to go and see this, and I think it's going to be absolutely great. Linfield Mount's a very unusual place for a lot of people are saying, what's happening there? Would you like to tell them, that's your choice of venue and exactly when it is and how it all began? Because I understand Alan was the writer of it.
Yes, yeah. Just going back to Linfield Mount, Tina, it wasn't necessarily our choice.
Right.
They found us.
Oh, right.
We've done this play a few times for various NHS organisations, and I think through that, Angus, who works at Linfield Mount, found out about it and approached us. So that's the connection there.
Oh, it should be excellent. I mean, I've visited a friend once in there, and they're very responsive people, I think, to get something coming in like that, because probably this doesn't often happen, and I think it's really important to take it there. So would you like to tell our listeners what the title of your play is?
It's called The Last Memory.
Oh, that sounds, it's like The Last Post almost, is that, isn't it? Mm.
Basically, it's about Catherine and her dad, who I met. I met her dad, Edwin Harrison. I've named him Ernest Hanson in the play. But basically, it's about their story and how when he was first diagnosed with dementia.
Oh, yes.
And how Catherine looked after him. And there's some quite nice, sweet pieces in it, and there's some funny pieces, and there's quite a lot of meaningful pieces as well, isn't it, Catherine?
It's not all doom, gloom, and utter despondency, which could put people off, and we really don't want that to do, because many people come away feeling hopeful after they've seen this play. It's all about how you deal with how you're dealing with the person who's got Alzheimer's or dementia to make their journey a better one. And if you make them feel better about themselves and things going forward and make them feel secure, then you've just got a much easier ride.
Yes. You've got to really be able to understand it, don't you, before you can even start thinking about what to do, or how to speak to somebody. You really need the bones of it to realise it can be sort of just come on and go away, can't it? That's the trouble.
One of our main messages in the play is that you really have to go into their reality. So, if they're saying they need to go home because their mother's waiting for them with their tea, don't say, don't be silly, your mother's dead. Just say, we'll just have a cup of tea first and then we'll talk about it later and then we'll maybe get the next bus or something. It's almost like improvisation in drama.
Yes.
Go with where they feel comfortable rather than making them feel.
I found when I had a friend of ours that there were certain trigger phrases that they recognised straight away. The one that I used was "Let's sing Brown Boots," and it used to take him from whatever mood he was in back into that period where he used to do that.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
It's just finding that trigger.
Yeah, I mean, what inspired me to write this play was that I met Edwin when he was very well down on his dementia journey. I didn't know him before he got dementia. Yeah. And one day I saw a video of him which was taken at his retirement party when he was in his late 50s. And I saw him in the fullness of himself. And it made me think, well, I think if I was going to get dementia, if I knew I'd got dementia, I would want to leave a message to my family while I was still there.
Yes.
And that's what he does in the play. He gets a video and he talks to his daughter and he talks about his childhood and her childhood and various funny stories, so that she's got a record of him in the years to come if he does forget her or if he gets her mixed up with somebody else. And that's one of the central parts of the play, this video message that he makes, and you see him make it.
Yes, that's so clever, isn't it? Because nobody else can sort of pick that message out of them and say, well, I was there and they said this, because you don't know if they were right. It's second-hand knowledge, isn't it? Whereas that person doing it on their own, under their own volition. When I had my first daughter, and my second daughter, and I had to go into hospital. My husband had been really ill, so my mum and dad were coming to look after him, and my daughter was like, where's my mum going? And I got a tape recorder, and I remember listening to it, after I'd sent this message. And every time I had, contractions, my voice sort of went a bit different. And I just thought she was so thrilled when she got it, because it was my voice and she could listen to it every day, because I was away 7 days. And I think, you don't know if you're coming back. I might have died in childbirth or something, and I just felt that I needed, perhaps somebody like Edwin would, to do that, to just make it known that you do remember these things, and you do want people to remember those things as well with you.
Yeah. I mean, what Alan's done in this play, which is really clever, is he's taken a lot of my family's stories and read sort of letters and some of my aunties. So all the stories, apart from a couple, which are Alan's own stories, are about my family and my dad's tales. Because my dad was a Methodist lay preacher, and he had a lot of funny stories about when he used to go on his bike and, go to these little chapels in the middle of nowhere and do his thing. And it's just little bits like that really bring it to life.
I think this is a wonderful side of things, that we now technically are able to keep them with us. Not physically, but physically in the sense that you listen to their voice, and that you're not talking about things that you've been told about them. They're actually there with you.
Yeah, we're the first generation, really, that have got access to the mobile phones. It's so easy to film ourselves. We have no record of our great-grandparents. We don't know what they look like. I remember a couple of my great-grandparents from when I was little, but they were all old people then. And obviously those memories have gone now. But can you imagine, in the years to come, this generation of us now, people will be able to see us talking in 500 years.
Yes.
What we look like. We're like looking at somebody, for us, in the 1500s. But perhaps we don't really realise that, because even I lost my mum last year, and I started to film her, but it did catch me out. Even when I was doing this play, I didn't do enough filming of it, so I think that's something that when we have done this play, people have realised. They've gone away and thinking, I need to record my mother or my dad or whoever, or my grandma, and while they're still here, telling these stories, it's like a memory, isn't it? But that's another thing other than the dementia. That's not necessarily about dementia. That's about all of us.
Yeah, you can't do anything about the dementia, because it's a fact. The only thing is, you can keep them with you, because in those lucid periods between, you can bring things about the past when you were with them.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's dementia journey is different.
Yes.
It's like a kaleidoscope. Every single picture is different, and so some people have a very, very wretched dementia journey. I've been in care homes where because I do that actually in my job. I remember seeing an old lady once, and she was begging me to open the door. In fact, I put this into the play. Yeah. She was mustering well into her 80s, and she was begging and sobbing that she thought that her mother, she thought she was back at infant school, and she thought that her mother was waiting on the other side of the door. And she just, can you imagine what it must be like to be a 5-year-old girl, knowing that your mother is on the other side of that door?
That's horrifying, isn't it? Because often we dream things. I read something the other week, and I won't go into it, but what it was, somehow I couldn't find a key one day, and then about 3 days later, into this dream, I couldn't get in my own house, and I was panicking, and I couldn't go anywhere because the buses had stopped, and it's like, that I sometimes think some people cannot visualise that. I was in a writing group once, and they said, such and such, and this girl said, I can't picture a daffodil in my head. I know what a daffodil is when I see it, but I can't picture it. I can't bring it back in my mind. Unless it's in front of me, I don't see it. And yet somebody had told me there's lots of people are like that, but I've never ever heard of anybody else. And she hasn't got this visual memory. Whereas people who have dementia, they might have that, but can't tell us about it. Might be able to verbalise it, might they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've worked quite a bit with the Alzheimer's Society, and there is groups that called Singing for the Brain.
Yes.
We've raised quite a lot of money over the years, actually, with this play. And the first money that we made, we invested it, so we gave it to the Alzheimer's. We bought a lot of instruments, tambourines and things like that. And music is in a different. Your memory of music is in a different part of your brain. Wow. And Edwin could remember lots of things.
Yes.
And I think people who even can play the piano can still play the piano. Yes. It's a different type of memory in a different compartment.
It's kind of automatic, isn't it? It's like when you say you haven't ridden a bike for years and that you can still manage to do it. So that's it. So can you tell us now the dates? Are there still some tickets left? That's the point.
I think, yes. I think I talked to Angus earlier. He said he'd sold between 50 and 60, which is amazing.
Oh, right. So we're going to speak to Angus shortly, so we'll ask him about that. Yeah.
So that's the Linfield Mount performance.
And that's free, isn't it?
I think so.
Yes, it was, love, yes. Yeah.
So at 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 25th.
Wednesday the 25th. That's why I so much wanted, not for it to be empty. Like, if people don't know and they're not going, it's horrendous for the actors to do something to 6 or 7 people, And I just thought, I'm so pleased about that. That seems absolutely fantastic. So you'll be there on that day, will you, both of you, obviously?
Yeah, well, I'm in the play myself. I played character based on myself.
Yes.
Keith Royston, who played the character based on my dad.
Yes.
But after Linfield Mount, we're going on to Ellen's Cricket Club in the evening at 7 o'clock.
Oh, right.
And that's for the Calderdale Staying Well team. We've already done a performance for them last May at a different venue.
Golly.
And then we're on at Illingworth Moor Methodist Church.
Oh, yes.
On the 28th of September. In Halifax, that's for a local dementia cafe.
Yeah, that's quite near me as well.
But then we've got an amazing venue to do on Tuesday the 1st of October, which is Whipping Cathedral.
Oh, wow. Oh, that should get full.
Yeah, that's in association with the Friends of Whipping Cathedral.
Yes.
We're doing that for Dementia Forward, which is the North Yorkshire Charity Care and Support for Life.
Yeah, so how many times have you done this play now?
Probably about 45, 50.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's...
We did it. Both my parents were still alive.
Yes.
And that was in 2013. And then we did another tour in 2016.
Gosh.
And just after we started the tour, my mum had just passed away of vascular dementia. And then at the end of the tour, exactly 6 weeks later, my dad passed away.
Oh, gosh.
And I thought I could never, ever do the play again. I thought it would be too grief-stricken, but we managed it.
I think it's thinking what other people get from it, isn't it? Sometimes that gives you that adrenaline to carry on.
It does.
So
right. I've had people come up to me after a performance once. The most memorable time was Graftington at the Oxford Gun Theatre.
Oh, yes.
And there was a lady who came up to me and she just said, "Thank you, you've given me hope." And she
lovely.
told me that she'd been diagnosed with dementia just a few weeks earlier.
Wow.
And just watching the play had made her feel far more hopeful for the future.
That's wonderful.
Just that one person, it was all worth it. Yeah.
You are doing such a marvellous job, and I hope to see you on the day there. And I shall make myself known. And thank you both. I know that you're dashing off somewhere else that's kind of not the best of venues, but there we go.
Tina, while I've got the airwaves.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to see me?
Oh, yes.
I'm on in Bingley next week, at Bingley Little Theatre in A Passionate Woman.
Oh, lovely. A Passionate Woman.
Yeah, but I'm not playing the Passionate Woman.
You are not. Has the woman got passion for you then? Is that the one? Are you the other half of this one?
I'm the husband of the Passionate Woman.
Oh, right.
With somebody else, but I won't give any more spoilers. But,
so what?
Interested, it's on at Bingley Little Theatre next week. Lovely theatre.
What days?
By Kay Mellor.
Okay, Mellor, that's good.
If anybody wants to put a face to this voice, then you can see me there.
And what time are they on? What dates, are they on?
That's on next week, all week.
All week, right, thank you. I might even get to that. You might never know, I'll be creeping in all over. So thank you.
The company that we've got is called Talking Stock Productions, so I don't think we mentioned that until now. So we've done quite a lot of plays over the years, and Alan's written quite a few of them, and he's won various awards.
Right. We'll have to get Alan to come in sometime. Is that okay?
That'd be lovely.
We'll try this a few weeks on, and we'll try that after I've been to see you play, and then I can tell everybody all about it. So thank you for being with us today. We'll speak to Angus after the news, and I hope it all goes well in your rehearsals.
Yeah.
You must be word perfect by now.
Well, yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
When I start forgetting, I start to worry.
Oh dear.
Good to talk.
Right. Thank you very much indeed
Bye.
for being with us.
No,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Hello, Angus.
Hello.
Now then, we got through to you all right. Tina's just come in. I was trying to do two different things at the same time.
I know the feeling.
And so we go this. Now, we've just spoke, or just before the news, we spoke to Alan and Catherine, and it's it's dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think their play kind of exemplifies everything that I've been experiencing as a mental health nurse, and I've been working I work as a research nurse, so a lot of the time I'm going out to see people in their own homes, or maybe I'll go to care homes. So I'm seeing a lot of people having all different forms of dementia and different degrees of how far advanced it is with each one. And every time it's very different.
Yes.
Every person I see is very different. So, yeah, I think their play is something that needs to be seen by as many people as possible.
Yes, you must going out like that and doing research on it must seem to see an awful lot of people in all sorts of states of dementia.
Well, that's right, yeah. When I go out, I work on different research studies, you see. Sometimes I'll be working on a research study. Well, I'll tell you about ones I'm doing at the moment. There's a research study I'm doing at the moment called SenseCog, and that's looking to help people that have dementia and sight loss, and also people who have dementia and hearing loss. Because, of course, when you've got dementia, you're already cut off to a certain extent from reality. Can you imagine dementia and sight loss as well? It's absolutely horrific how that can affect some people. But what we're looking at is assessments of people. So when we assess people for cognitive deficiencies, or we might be assessing for dementia, there's all sorts of assessments out there at the moment. You might have heard of some of them. One's called mini mental state examination. That's the one in hospitals where the doctor will come round, he'll ask you who the current Prime Minister is, that sort of thing. I don't know, you may want to forget who that is at the moment. But, you might be asked certain other questions as well. But the one that we're concentrating on, it's called the MOCA, it stands for Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and it's a similar one to the mini mental state examination in that you're required to, do certain puzzles and things like that. You might draw a 3D shaped cube, and you might have to do simple subtraction tasks, that sort of thing. Now, when we do that with people, when we're assessing for cognitive deficiencies, that's fine, but when you've got a hearing impairment, or when you've got a vision impairment, obviously that's going to be a lot harder to do.
Yes.
So you're going to struggle with those tasks, and you might get a lower score than you would in normal cases. So what the researchers have done is they've adapted the MOCA, and they've adapted it for people who can't see as well, and they've adapted it for people who can't hear as well. And we're trying out these assessments at the moment. And hopefully, if we can prove that these assessments work just as well as the normal MOCA, we'll be able to start rolling them out mainstream into hospitals, and people that do have vision impairment and cognitive deficiencies, or hearing impairment and cognitive deficiencies, will be able to start being assessed properly.
Yes, because
it's a really worthwhile research study.
Yes, I should think it is. It's really a case of trying to work out which is the problem, whether it's the hearing or sight or the dementia.
Yeah. There's, I'll tell you about one lady that I've seen on this particular study who, she has a diagnosis of dementia, but when we've been to see her, we've tried out the MOCA hearing impaired assessment with her, and she's actually scoring really highly on it. as though she doesn't have dementia at all.
Oh.
And when we've tested her hearing, we found that she's got quite significant hearing impairment. So there's every chance that she's been wrongly diagnosed with dementia, and she's actually got a significant hearing impairment. But that can have a huge impact on someone's life, because for the last year she's been taking medication specifically for dementia,
Yeah.
which in some cases can sedate you. So it's possible for the last year she's been sedated when there was absolutely no need.
And especially if she's in a nursing home or something like that.
That's right. This particular lady wasn't, but yeah, you're right. It's kind of, I see people from all different walks of life.
Yes. It would be like, well, in the old Victorian days, putting them in an asylum when they were sane, wouldn't it?
Well, it's kind of, hopefully we're far removed from those.
I agree, thank goodness.
It's one of those things that needs more research
Yes.
into, and that's why I'm really glad that we're doing this sort of study, because it has a real chance of changing the way we assess people.
And there's so many. I'm not making light of this, because it's like children when they're assessed that may be dyslexic, but they're not. In the old days, they didn't know they were just stupid.
Yeah, well, this is the thing with the mocker assessment, you see, because there's lots and lots of different tasks on it.
Yes.
And there's some tasks that look at your orientation, there's some tasks that look at your attention, there's some tasks that look at your visuospatial awareness, that sort of thing. And through getting the person to undertake these tasks, we can find out which part of their brain isn't functioning as well as the other parts, you see. So it may be that I go out and see someone who's been diagnosed with dementia, and we find that they're lacking in, attention skills or, memory skills,
Yes.
that sort of thing. Whereas I might see someone else, and it may just be their visuospatial awareness that's not working as well. But it all kind of depends on the person.
Yes, and it's so individual as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And kind of in the way that the person, how this affects with the person's whole family as well. Because when someone has dementia, obviously it doesn't just affect them. The family almost becomes a byproduct of the dementia itself. Everybody's kind of working towards helping this person with dementia. So every family that I see is different as well. And they're all kind of wanting to know how best to help.
Yes, and this can be so frustrating, particularly if they're suffering from two different things like that. That you might be, you're trying to bring them out, but they're not lost. It's just that they can't hear or see.
That's right, yeah. Most of the people that I'm seeing at the moment are people that have quite recently been diagnosed with dementia. So a lot of the time, the people that I'm seeing are almost in a state of shock, really, because obviously when you get told you've got dementia, it's a huge impact on your life. It's something that takes a long while to sink in, and I suppose that's the reason why I'm telling you about this particular research study, is because I went out to see someone who had been quite recently diagnosed, and I was going through the study with them. Generally, everybody that I see usually wants to do the study because they can see how it's going to help people in the future. But these particular people had been recently diagnosed with dementia. It was the husband who'd been diagnosed with dementia. And as I was going through the assessments with them, they told me about a play that they'd been to see quite recently called The Last Memory. And I was quite intrigued by it, and I asked them a little bit more about it. And they went and fetched me the programme, told me they'd been to see it, and they told me it had a huge impact on them as a family because, as I say, they've been recently diagnosed, and going to see this play and seeing Catherine and Alan's work on the stage and the impact it had on them was quite it was quite emotional, really, how they told me about it. They said it gave them a bit of hope for the future. So the more they talked about it, the more I thought, I'd like to kind of show as many people at the hospital as I can this play. And it's something that I'd done before in terms of another thing that I do is I try and put on training sessions for all the staff at the hospital, because I kind of feel when a nurse has completed a nurse training, they get thrown into the ward environment, and it's sink or swim. It really is frenetic out there with all the staff cuts and the budget cuts and all that sort of thing. So the nurses are really run ragged out there, and it's no different on the mental health wards. It's astonishing how hard the nurses are working, and I wanted to give them as many opportunities as I could to develop their learning once they'd qualified. So what I do is I contact people from all different areas of the trust that specialise in certain areas, and I ask them to come into the hospital every so often, and they'll give a teaching session to all the nurses and student nurses that can come along. And in that way, we're getting our staff to teach our staff, and it just increases the communication between the different areas, the wards, the communities, all that sort of thing. And it provides staff with a place to just sort of learn from their peers.
Yes, and it works the other way as well, doesn't it? The staff have so much to add because of their personal experiences.
Absolutely, yeah. And having said that as well, we also, quite a few times, we've got service users to come along and talk about their experiences as well. So, we've had service users that have come along and talked about their experiences of hearing voices to all the staff that attend the sessions, and it really is something that kind of grounds you as a nurse. A lot of the time, as a nurse, you're almost forced to focus on completing paperwork and updating records and all that sort of thing, which is important. But at the same time, you can almost forget about the families on the ground and the real life human experience that these people are going through, and that's what's really important to me. And I think that's why I wanted to put the play on as well, because that's what this play is. It's a real life human experience, and there's nothing quite like that to kind of make you think about who you're working for and who you're trying to help as a nurse.
As you say, as you say there, Angus, that it's all paperwork. Everywhere you go, the police are filling in paperwork, officials, in councils are filling in paperwork, even doctors, and they're diddling on their computers and stuff. And it seems that people nowadays don't have time to actually deal with what the situation is. They've got to fill so much literature out, for backing up and everything. Which, I don't know, we're cutting so many trees down to fill it all in. It makes you wonder sometimes, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, to be honest, I don't want paperwork, but a lot of the time the systems are on the computer now.
Yeah, but if your computer crashes, you can't get hold of it then, can you? That's where,
that's it.
I still have backup things in.
We have backup systems at the hospital, but at the same time, when you're actually on the computer filling out all these documentation, all these records, you're away from the patient.
Of course, yes.
I was just thinking then about the first lady you talked about who turned out to be deaf rather than suffering from Alzheimer's. It would be like giving her a new life, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, this is the beauty of working as a research nurse as well, because I'm not tied down to any kind of discipline, really, in that I need to be very, very flexible, because every research study that I do is very different. That's kind of why I like my job, because it changes all the time. For 6 months to a year, I'll be working on dementia research, and then it'll change very soon. In October, I'm going to be working on a study looking at women who self-harm in prisons. So I'll be going into some prisons and to try and help these people.
Do you know, that'd be really good if we could get you to come back when you've started doing that and let us know how things are faring there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd be really pleased if that could happen, because it does sound, as if it's something that, needs investigating, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, this is what's exciting about my job. It's the fact that there's all these new things coming up and I'm able to get involved in them.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, because it's technique as much as anything, isn't it? How you approach it, how you approach a task, whether it be in this case Alzheimer's or physical abuse, personal physical abuse.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very, very difficult to just kind of go from one particular discipline to another. You need to be very, very flexible
Yes.
to kind of do it.
And having a caring personality that comes over, not just being a caring person, but comes over to the patient you're speaking to.
That's right. Because, of course, these research studies, they're all completely voluntary.
Yes.
Nobody has to do them. People are doing them because they want care to improve.
Yeah.
Wow,
So you always have to remember that as a nurse.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm guessing because I've never been in the situation of either personally or knowing anyone, but self-abuse, very often these people hide it, don't they?
Yeah, it's different for everybody.
Right.
It's one of those things that's very hard to help with as a nurse as well, because it's kind of it's up to the person who's self-abusing to be able to deal with this sort of thing. All you can do is offer support and provide as much guidance as you can, really.
It's like
Going back to the mocker side of things, will you leave a permanent record with such as Linfield Mount?
When you do the research study, we're contacting people who are just interested in doing the research. So it's not our actual service users that we're contacting. We're contacting anybody. In fact, we're contacting people who don't have dementia as well as people who do have dementia, because what we're trying to do is validate these new assessments, you see.
Yes.
So, and actually, while I'm with you, I'd be interested in anybody who has a vision impairment and anybody who's been diagnosed with dementia and has a hearing impairment or a vision impairment. I'd be very interested to hear from anybody who's willing to take part in this research study. We're still looking for a few volunteers to take part in the study. It doesn't take very long. On average, it takes about 3 hours, but that can be split up into different visits. And it's just a series of assessments and a hearing and a sight test. So if anybody is interested in taking part in current research that could help people with dementia, please get in touch with me. I'd be very interested to hear.
That's really, really good, isn't it? I used to do market research for a job, and you do find that you need a cross section, don't you? You don't just need a certain bunch of people. You need all sorts of different backgrounds, types of work, types of age groups, and everything.
Yeah.
And it was very hard sometimes to kind of fill them all up, but.
It's actually an international study, is SenseCog, so it's actually happening in Nicosia in Cyprus, it's in Athens in Greece, and in France it's Bordeaux and Nice, and then the only two sites that have it in England are Manchester and Bradford.
Right, Bradford, you see, that's really, really intriguing, isn't it? Why shouldn't we be on the map? And have you got a telephone number that people could ring there, Agnes, to offer their services, perhaps?
They'd be able to ring my office phone number, which is 01274 228618.
228618 with the
Or
01274
they could phone my work mobile,
Right.
and that's 07525 872 426.
Right, I'll just repeat that, 07525 872 426. Yeah.
That's the one.
Okay, that's grand. I hope, that people will have gone to this play, like myself, I'm going taking somebody, and then pass all that knowledge on to somewhere else, because obviously the play's going further, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've sold between 50 and 60 tickets so far. We have 100 tickets that were available, so...
right. So you've still 40 places left, roughly, yeah.
There's around 45 places left.
Okay.
The tickets are completely free, and it's on at Linfield Mount Hospital in the recreation hall.
And that was the
The parking will be tricky in the hospital, but there is parking on nearby roads if anybody's interested in coming to see it. and we've got a lovely little cafe next door to the recreation hall
Oh,
as well,
right.
the Four Seasons Cafe.
And again, the date and the time, if you could.
Yeah, it's the 25th of September.
Okay, and it's a Wednesday, is it
it's-
there?
Sorry?
Is that a Wednesday?
It is a Wednesday, yeah, and it's on at 1:30, and it'll last for around about an hour and a half.
Yes.
But we'll have stalls up in the recreation hall as well.
Oh,
with
right.
different research studies in each stall.
Yes. Well, we'll try and promote it, more and more. I have a few groups I go to, and I shall put a little notice up about them, because I really think it needs more input from people who haven't got it to understand those who have.
Absolutely. The more we get it out there, the more
Lovely.
people will understand, because, of course, the population is getting older.
Yes.
And we're going to have more and more people that are probably going to develop dementia.
And thank you for suggesting Catherine and Alan. That was really interesting,
It's
having the
no
writer and an actor or actress there. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing the play.
Yes, so thank you ever so much. Really appreciate your time today.
Don't
Thank you.
don't hang up straight away, Angus, because I'm going to put a record on and I'll have a quick word with you.
Okay, thanks.
Right.